All right, so we are live. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to Meet the Press with me, Lovejoy and Tungiza. The show is Meet the Press with Lovejoy, and on the show we talk about everything and anything, and we discuss issues from business, we talk politics, we talk current affairs, but we continue with the message that in as much as the country has been opened for everybody to be mingling around, I know we missed this for like two months now. But let's continue to take care of ourselves. Let's continue to take care of our relatives. COVID-19 is still around us. Let's maintain those social distances. I know it's difficult right now, but for the sake of everybody else, please try to do that. The numbers, yes, they are getting lower every day, but we should not drop ball. So we want and we encourage everybody to take care of themselves. That said, today we have an interesting program. We're going to be talking about sanctions. We have had sanctions since, I think, the early 2000s, from around 1999, 2000, when the US government, led then by former President George Bush, imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe following the violent land grab, so they say. Some call it land reform, some call it land grab. It depends on which side of the fence you're sitting. And there have been a lot of calls to have these sanctions removed. One of the organizations that has been calling for the removal of sanctions is the Broad Alliance Against Sanctions, and they've been camped at the US Embassy in Harare in Westgate for the past 705 days. That's close to 2 years. On 29 March, they commemorate 2 years whilst camped at the US Embassy. So we track them down and we try to hear what they're saying, what their message is. Do they think sanctions are eventually going to end? We would want to hear what they have to say. We talk to them. We also talk to them about their social life. Remember, this is 2 years. These guys have got families. Some of them have got families, some of them not. But we wanted to find out, how do they survive, right? Where are their families? How are they making it on a daily basis? How are they eating? What are they eating on a daily basis? How do they bath? Those are some of the questions that we were asking them. But maybe before we cross over to them, you might want to also know that the US government extended sanctions again on Zimbabwe a couple of weeks ago on a few individuals. The US government maintains that the sanctions are targeted. They are not for all Zimbabweans, but in essence, they affect everybody. So let's cross over to Broad Alliance Against Sanctions and find out what they had to say about their fight against sanctions. They call it a war. So we want to hear, are they going to turn violent one day? Let's hear them out.
So it is our appeal or a push to the American government that this sanction must be removed. So we are here camped and we will continue to camp as well. We are here to push for the move of what? Of sanctions.
All right.
let's talk about your membership first before we get into how many days you've been here. How many are you, and why did you decide to take up, can I say, arms, quiet arms, if I can use that word, to fight against sanctions? What's so special about you?
It's very unfortunate that we have lost count, or in terms of numbers. We are as many as 15 million citizens. Every citizen of Zimbabwe is being affected by these sanctions. So we are only a representative of those who are affected by these sanctions. But we are around 15 million of ordinary citizens who are being affected.
So in other words, you are representing every Zimbabwean?
We are representing every Zimbabwean.
Your organization, Broad Alliance Against Sanctions, has been accused or aligned to the ruling party, ZANU-PF. Some say you're being funded by the ruling party to come and camp here. I believe this is day 699 since you've been camped here, which is almost 2 years now. How do you respond to that?
Constitutionally, we have got rights of expressions, of freedom of expression. So people who said so are just but expressing their views, but it's the naked truth or a naked lie that we are being funded by anybody. We are being assisted by other citizens or like-minded citizens of Zimbabwe who are seeing it as a noble cause, our stay at this embassy. So it's not like we are being funded by anyone. We are not being funded by anyone or even the government itself. We are doing even projects here to support. So it's no sense to us or an insult to say we are being funded.
All right. I want to focus on, I believe all of you here have got families back at home, and you say you've been here for 699 days. Please take us through. Do you go back home sometimes to meet your families, or do your families come here?
We at times go, and at times the families come. We are hardly affected by these sanctions. So it will be very difficult, especially for myself. I'm from Blawayo. I can't even manage to be there weekly or even monthly. So I take time, maybe once in 3 months to be there.
All right. Now, let's go back to why we are here. You mentioned the issue of sanctions. And this has been a war against the Americans since, I think, the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, somewhere there. And the Americans do not seem like they will change anytime soon. What does that now mean for you? You've been here 2 years saying sanctions must go, but more sanctions recently. How do you respond to that? What do you have to say about that? Do you think maybe you're losing the fight? Do you think you'll win at some point?
We are of the view that one day we'll win. The fact that they sit yearly to review, it means it's something which is diarized on their own, to say yearly we are going to review the sanctions of Zimbabwe. In reviewing, there will be some recommendations here and there to say, for this reason, maybe under the year elapsed, what is it been wronged by the government of Zimbabwe as to what they say. Though the naked truth to it is that this issue of sanctions were caused or were put in place as a measure to counter the land repossession which was done in Zimbabwe around 1999.
So you're adamant that one day you win?
Definitely.
During, I think, yesterday's presentation letter to the ambassador, you and we had a small brief, a brief chat that we had, and you said that this is like war. This is like a war. This is why you came here. This is what you're fighting for. Please explain to us what this kind of war means to you and the 50 million people that you represent.
Now, it's a generational war. In fact, it's an economic warfare. Our economy is choked, like we mentioned. Our industry is closed. We must be employed, but we can't be employed. There is high inflation rate here in Zimbabwe. Why? Because the financial space is not that good to the country. So it's an economic warfare. It's a warfare for our generation. So we are the rightful people to fight for this war. We are the foot soldiers to the fight of these sanctions.
Okay, going back to the issue of families, yeah.
a war, you're in the jungle, literally you're in the jungle, because looking behind you here, there's a whole wetland, yeah, right?
Truly.
And take us through how you survive. I go back again to the issue of you being funded by the ruling party. How do you survive here on a daily basis? Who gives you food? Who gives you clothes? Who gives you everything that you need on a daily basis? Or maybe you're doing things for yourselves.
It was very difficult for us to survive, especially on the early days. But we had to introduce what we called sanction busting projects, whereby we had to do a bit of projects on our own so that we sustain our living here. We are doing candle making here, whereby we've got the capacity to do around 100 packets of candles by 6 each packet. We are doing farming here, small projects. So we are sustaining ourselves here. And also we are molding bricks. Very soon we'll be rearing chickens. So it's very clear that as ordinary citizens in Zimbabwe, we are hardworking and we are in a position to sustain ourselves. But it's only that these Americans, they decided otherwise, so that whenever, in fact, if you are to do A, B, C, D to sustain yourself, the income will be choked again.
Okay. Talking about income generating projects to sustain yourselves, instead of maybe camping here for 699 days, don't you think maybe these are the things that you should be doing in communities, maybe imparting the same knowledge that you have on other people so that you bust the sanctions that you're talking about?
We are doing so. Other members of the community are the very people who are affected by these sanctions. They do come here. When they come here, we do teach them, we train them how to pass these sanctions. Well, as they go back, when they go back home. Like we mentioned that we are only a representative of the 15 million Zimbabweans. So whatever knowledge we have here, we share with them.
Don't you miss your families?
We do miss. It's very, very unfortunate that we don't have accommodation enough. Otherwise, we could have been staying with them here, with the kids, with our goats here, and everything.
Okay, interesting. So, going back to the issue of the sanctions itself, yesterday you presented a letter to a representative of Ambassador Brian Nichols, and in the letter, you want the newly elected president of the United States of America, Mr. Joe Biden, to attend to the Zidera. Do you think he has got an ear for you? Do you think he has got time for Zimbabwe, seeing that we are under a global pandemic? The whole world is affected by a lot of problems. Do you think Zimbabwe fits into his itinerary?
We are very much anticipating that, and we are hopeful that you will listen to us. Considering that this letter was penned by ordinary citizens of Zimbabwe, and they penned it under a tree, not in a hotel, like what used to be done. Of late, with people from parliament, from the legislature, from maybe the presidium, calling for removal of these sanctions. And maybe it is a first to have ordinary citizens writing a letter to such a president of America to remove sanctions. So it is in his power to probably revoke the presidential powers and repeal Zidera. So we are very much optimistic that you will listen to the concerns of ordinary citizens. We had been suffering for the past 2 decades now.
President Joe Biden will be the 4th president. If I'm not mistaken, yes, we had President George Bush, we had President Barack Obama, we had President Donald Trump, and now we've got President Joe Biden. He'll be the 4th president to preside over sanctions on Zimbabwe. What makes it special for him to listen to you, to want to revoke the Zidera Act? Also, do you think you as an organization, you've got what it takes to engage? Let's say he says, come, let's talk. Do you think we have what it takes to engage with him?
Yes, we do have. Like we mentioned before, that it's a first for ordinary citizens to take head-on with the American government, unlike before. So it will knock some sense on him to say, no, previously or of late, it had been the government of Zimbabwe engaging. Like the government of Zimbabwe right now, they are engaging with what? The government of America. But now, it's now the ordinary citizens or the primary affected ones who are taking it head-on with what? With the Americans. So he must see it fit and consider repealing SIDERA.
For the past 699 days, have you seen progress in as far as engagement with the US ambassadors, with the US government is concerned?
Of course, yes, but there are challenges. I remember last time we ended up appearing before the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Foreign Affairs, where we put it to the committee that when we met the ambassador on the 11th of December 2019, the ambassador himself ended up offering us vehicles and houses for the four of us who were attending that meeting, to the effect that we must consider relocating from camping here and camp at State House, Munumtapa or Africa Unity Square, with a different objective. That will be now the objective of fighting our own government, which we turned down. That we are trying to protect the government of Zimbabwe and citizens of Zimbabwe.
I can see you have got about 7 other comrades here. How is your setup here? How do you sleep? You know, we are under COVID-19 regulations, social distancing, and I see you've got 2 tents. How do you sleep? How do you manage to ensure that you are safe from COVID-19? How do you, or where do you seek medical attention? Let's say one of your members fall sick, and during this pandemic, has any member of yours been diagnosed with the COVID-19?
Okay. We took seriously the regulations or recommendations from WHO, as well as the government of Zimbabwe, that we do social distance, that we use even the mask, we sanitize, and as for sleeping, like you mentioned, that we have got 2 tents. It's very true, one for females and one for males. We have got a very big following, and people had been camped here for numbers maybe exceeding 200, 300 at any given time. But due to this pandemic, we had to cut that number so that we left with what a manageable size of number. But we never recorded any case of COVID infected person.
Mm-hmm.
So we are very much safe, and we are practicing everything so that we don't report any case of this disease.
How are you acquiring your personal protective equipment, the PPEs?
Here we've got 2 well-wishers. They some donate to us, so we don't have the capacity to buy. Like we mentioned, that we are just ordinary citizens who can't even afford at times food to eat, but we rely on what? On well-wishers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, let's go back to the social life as well. Before you came here, were you employed somewhere, or you were just sitting at home affected by the sanctions? How was your life like before you decided to take up arms again, silent arms, and came here?
I'm one person who is among the unfortunate generation that after school, the industry was closed. I never enjoyed or even have access to any pay slip. So I was never employed. From school, it was straight to the streets. So I decided to say, let's carry out a survey and see what caused the closure of our industries. That's when we realized that these sanctions caused the closure of our industries. So we decided to take arms against this government of America.
Are you part and parcel of the Anti-Sanctions Day? Is that your baby, or it's not?
Anti-sanctions is not our baby. It's something that we was introduced at a SADC summit, so we heard through the press. So we can't say it's our baby. But what we can say is that we came here on 29 March 2019, and Sanction Day was introduced on October 2019. So it was introduced well, right? We came to here.
All right. What is your relationship like with members of the opposition movements? Most of them have been on drive to have sanctions imposed in Zimbabwe, whilst others have said no, sanctions do hurt everybody. How is your relationship with their leaders? Have you tried to engage with them? Have you tried to talk as Zimbabweans, as citizens, to say, guys, what you're saying is wrong? And how was their response, if ever you did?
Broad Alliance Against Sanctions is an organization which is composed of people from different political parties. The presence of people from different political parties, it's an evidence that Broad Alliance is non-political. To that effect, we tried our best, even engage Mr. Nelson Chamisa. We recall one day, he even visited the ambassador of America. We tried to talk to him, but he snapped us. So, it is a and it is denying what
we have those things going on in Zimbabwe, we are going to maintain those sanctions. How do you respond to that?
And it's not only human rights abuses which is mentioned in Zidera. There's also an area of deployment of soldiers in DRC. There's also an area of property rights. There's also land issue. There are a lot of issues that they touched. But it's very clear to us, or even to anyone, that the issue of sanctions were brought about as a dispute on land repossession, which was done in Zimbabwe. In Zidera, they mentioned to say there was a land grab in Zimbabwe of that sort, of which we are saying land was never grabbed by Zimbabweans. Rather, these are the white people who came around 1890 and they forcibly took land from our ancestors in 1890. They took everything in 1890, and we only repossessed our land in around 1990, 2000, around there. So those issues, they are a lie, and it's only an area that they try to hide around. It's not, they didn't want to put it clear to anyone to say we are imposing sanctions on Zimbabwe, but they took land from us. We've got area of deployment of soldiers to DRC. Zimbabwean soldiers were never been to DRC. Rather, SADC bloc, which is Zimbabwe, is a member to that. So they were soldiers from SADC. In the same way, from the police, we've got the United Nations duties. But we can't say the police officers of Zimbabwe are going to Jaffa. But rather, it's what? United Nations peacekeeping, which is being what? Practiced there. In the same way, the SADC peacekeeping was practiced in DRC. The property rights. Which property are they talking of? We took our land, we took everything in that land. In the same way they took land from our ancestors. But as Broad Alliance Against Sanctions, we condemn wherever there is what element of human rights abuse. We understand after the August 1 incident, the president commissioned the Musante Commission and gave a report to which recommendations were made. It is our understanding that the government tried to move the talk. They went on to repeal even POSA and IPA, replacing with other acts, something which was being demanded in Zidera. But the government of Zimbabwe, having moved an inch, American government decided to ignore. Rather, they decided what? They went on to renew sanctions. They even went further to amend Zidera. Amendment to that Zidera mean that they continue to change goalposts. There was no need to amend Zidera if the demands or their demands were factual. But in this case, you can see that when we try to score, they change the goalposts. At the end of the day, it will be an offside to us.
Interesting.
is Salingoni. I'm the co-founder and spokesperson for Broad Alliance Against Sanctions.
All right. So you're the co-founder and spokesperson. Why did you decide that as a woman I want to fight against sanctions, and how important are women in the fight against sanctions and economic justice?
If you look at it closely, it's the woman who feels the burden of these sanctions more than men. Usually when a family is affected by sanctions, men usually run away. It's the women who remain behind, seeing their children suffer, failing to send their kids to school. So you find that it's the women in the society that suffer more from these sanctions. And actually that pushed me to say, as a woman, I should be in the forefront in the fight against sanctions, because it's us who are more affected by these sanctions more than our male counterparts. It's us who actually feel the burden more than our male counterparts. That's why we came to this fight.
Do you consider this to be some sort of a Chimorenga?
Since around we which position of lands so really affect that we say with the because you find that reason why the sanctions is because they want us to live for still, which is sanctions gross human rights abuses in Zimbabwe. But are there gross human rights abuses in Zimbabwe? Why countries have had human rights abuses not sanctioned? So you realize that they're just. So this is just another form, another art of
You put across the issue of the Americans, the Europeans hiding behind the finger. It's a statement that we've heard for a long time. In your opinion, why do you say they're hiding behind the finger, and what is it that they're hiding behind? What is the motive behind these sanctions?
All right. If you realize very well, starting from the early days of the slave trade, you realize that Africa has never been allowed to develop by the imperialists, if I'm allowed to call them that. We got to the time whereby they sat down and decided to partition Africa and say, Britain, you're taking this part, Germany will take this part. That shows that they don't have any feeling for Africa, or any, what can I call it, that feeling for Africa to grow. They believe that Africa should not develop, and hence they should just exploit our resources. They should just exploit us and enjoy the benefits. So if you look at it, slave trade, they are the ones who are benefiting. When they colonized Africa, they looted our resources. They actually built their own countries using our resources. And now, just because we gained our independence, they cannot actually exploit us the way they used to. So they are now using sanctions to try and exploit us again, so that they can coerce the people of Zimbabwe to do the things which they want. But if I can term it, they are trying to coerce the ordinary citizens of Zimbabwe to unconstitutionally remove a government which was voted for. So you realize that they're just hiding behind the finger. Otherwise, what they want is our land, what they want is our minerals, what they want is to exploit us as Zimbabweans and benefit from it at the end of the day.
Do you believe you're going to win someday?
every battle has a beginning and it has an ending. So one day we'll definitely win this war. And we believe that our ancestors are not sleeping. Like Mbiane undersaid kuti mapfupa angu achamuka ndokutomuka kwacho kwaari kuita ikoko, and I believe one day we are going to win this war.
Okay, now let's come back to the social life that you lead as a woman. You are camped here, I think 24/7, if I'm not mistaken. Don't you have a family home? And if you do, how do they take your absence from them?
Okay, I do have a family. I do have kids. They are not in Harare, they're actually far away, they're in Matebele land. It's difficult here staying away from my family, but it's one thing that I had to do. Just like our mothers and fathers, when they left for Mozambique and Zambia during the second Chimorenga, they left behind everything. I can't say I've neglected my family because I love them so much. I'm always in contact with them, and whenever I get time, I go and visit them. So it's difficult, but we're just hoping that soon this war will end and we'll be united with our families again, and maybe we'll lead a social life which will be good after the sanctions have been removed.
Do you miss home? Do you miss being around your family, your kids?
Yes, I do that a lot. I actually miss them. I am a mother. I have that motherly love.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to compromise in life.
So if this goes on for 5 years, you're still going to be camped here, or you find ways to unite with your family?
We're still going to be camped here. Maybe what we'll do is we'll bring the families here if needs be. And what we have to do if we see that they are not removing these sanctions, we're going to look for alternative ways to try and push them to remove these sanctions. You know, I still remember that my grandfather once said to me that, you know, these are Europeans and Americans, they don't understand any language except this finger, which actually brought the independence of Zimbabwe. So maybe that's the extent maybe that they are pushing the Zimbabweans to go. And I'm sure all Zimbabweans are willing to fight for our country, we are willing to fight for the total independence of our nation from these Europeans.
One would argue that the Americans are mightier than us. Should things go violent, of course we are not advocating for violence, but I'm just saying if things go violent, one would say, well, the Americans are better equipped than us to go to war with them. We obviously lose. How do you think maybe would be the best possible solution to engage with them without turning to violence?
Violence is actually not a solution. That's why we have engaged them several times. That's why maybe the government actually started a policy of engagement and re-engagement. So dialogue is the best way to go. But maybe if they are not interested in dialoguing with us, then we are human. I'm sure we're actually guided by the Vienna Convention. Otherwise, if there were no Vienna laws, I don't know, maybe we could have chased them away. We could have just gone there and told them that, you guys maybe just go back to America and leave us in Zimbabwe.
What kind of a Zimbabwe do you envisage to see, not for you, but for your kids?
I'm hoping that one day we're going to see a sanctions-free Zimbabwe. I'm hoping that one day the industries will open again. That maybe our kids will say after school they are employed and they go and work. That maybe a few will remain entrepreneurs and a lot will be like working. Because like these days you realize that 3/4 of my age mates are actually into entrepreneurship. So we hope that things will change in Zimbabwe. We hope that very soon everything is going to be okay and our economy is going to be boosted. It's once these sanctions are removed?
Some of the things that I know, practice of hygiene, tichero makomba but inenge wamugoti nekuda kwemvura. Atigorina enough space yekuti tuye zvinhu takawanda kuzomira. But ungatarisa motoona kuti ndo sorry. Tozviita futi every day izvozvo.
It's all right.
Ndo patinogezera unga motoona matombo sipo. Evidence enough yekuti it's not something really being exaggerated, but it's something chatiri kuto experience on daily basis. Saka it's even our appeal to members of the community kuti they must see it fit kuti vangu vachitibatsirawo nezvozvo zvinenge zvakaita seizvozvo tikwanise kuita put up a structure yekuti tokwanisa kunge chigeza zvakanaka. Munomu it's clear kuti one day mwana anobuda asina kupfeka achitiza nyoka nemamirira zvakaita, but tinotouya vakadzi vachiuya muno varume tese tichigeza.
So you take turns.
Yes, we take turns to take a bath.
But why put yourself at such a great risk?
Which risk?
Like you said, someone can be bitten by a snake in here.
Atina option. The only option inenge yapoka inenge yatoi kurega kugeza. Atina pamwe pekuti tokwanisa kunge tisingagezeri. Hatikwanisi kumirira usiku because American embassy nema lights ekuti usiku panenge pari masikati. Saka hatorina panhu pekuti togona kuenda pari open pekuti tinge tichigezera. Saka nenyaya yekuti chido privacy ndosaka takazosvika pakuuya kuno. Taimbova neplastic shed yatatakaisa apa ikapiswa manheru. We don't even know ndiani akapisa that shed yataigezera. But zvino izvi hatina mari dzaidzi kuti tinge tichikwanisa kutenga maplastics acho kuti tinge tichiita put up a proper structure panzvimbo inenge iri more safe. Masanctions asi they are not only affecting isusu vanhu chete, even tikatarira kumashure unoona kuti mboka dzaiti dzichidya sadza ainzi aidye sadza kana risina supu, aidye kiti yedu aidye sadza risina kuseva musupu. But izvezvi zvinotoona kuti kiti dzakutsikwa murodzi dzichitsvaga sadza chikafu chakutoita chishoma. Tikatarira mabhora ari kurepresenta maskilled players edu, masoka players vari kumaskills avainawo vakunotamba kunze uzwa kuti South Africa vanonzi vana Benjani vatamba vari kunana UK, vana Peter Ndlovu vatamba vari bhora ravanotamba iro tofanira kuchiriona isu muZimbabwe, but isu takuswera chiona mabhuzi maskills edu aenda kunze. Saka ndozvirepresented netudhori chose twauri kuona turi turaba, but vamwe vanhu vanongofunga maybe tudhoru takangoiswa kuti tiri kutengesa tavhura bhero kana kuti chii, but they actually represent a lot to these effects of what sanctions.
All right, so there you have it. That is Broad Alliance Against Sanctions, the group that is on a quest to end or to fight for an end to Zimbabwe's sanctions, which were imposed by the United States of America's government. They call themselves warriors, they call themselves fighters. They say this is a war and they're ready to fight and to do whatever it takes to ensure that the sanctions are removed. And in their quest, they appeal to our conscience. They say they need staff to continue with their war, to continue with their fight against sanctions, because they say this is not for them, this is not for the grouping alone. They say this is for the 15 million plus Zimbabweans. They say they're fighting for every Zimbabwean so that in the end, we can all see a sanctions-free Zimbabwe. One of the things that struck me was how these guys miss their families. Yes, it's a war. The lady was also referring to how during the Liberation War, families were left behind because there was one goal that needed to be achieved. And she says that periodically she goes home to see a family, to see a kid, which is something that touched many of us. So we hope that eventually this war can be won. We hope that eventually sanctions can be removed. But like I'd asked them, one of the key issues that sticks around is that sanctions, or the US government says that sanctions are a result of human rights abuses in Zimbabwe. They claim that there's a lot of abuse that is going on. everywhere in Zimbabwe. So for as long as that continues, the US government says we will not remove sanctions against certain individuals. They say there's a lot of corruption, which they say also is affecting millions of Zimbabweans. And they say they are fighting for us, the US government. They say they are fighting for the people of Zimbabwe. That's why they are sanctioning certain individuals. So it's, like I said earlier on, it also depends on which side of the fence you're sitting on. The sanction issue is really delicate. It's something that we cannot just discuss in 30 minutes or 40 minutes and then we say we can come to a conclusion. It needs different approaches from government officials, from these groups, and even us as the media to continuously engage on the way forward. That said, we believe everyone who fights eventually will win. And we wish them well, just like we would want to see sanctions removed against Zimbabwe so that everybody else can benefit. That said, my name is Lovejoy. The program was Meet the Press. Join me in other programs to follow, but remember to always sanitize, wear your mask, and socially distance because coronavirus is real. Take care.